Next is Vanessa, and she and I met very early on. She used to be executive director at Dupe 15Q, which is another rare disease organization. She's also a scientist, mom to 3, and when we were first starting the organization, I went to Chicago where she was, and I shadowed her for a day to learn what it would be like when we grew up to have an organization like hers at the time. And so I'm going to turn it over to her now.
All right, I also know that it's the end of the day and you guys are so tired. I'll give a little bit of a plug for RDLA too. So as Dupe 15Q, I actually engaged a lot with them, meaning like if you are curious, reach out to them. Even if you want to set something up in your home state or like even what to say, they'll give you scripts. It's awesome. I was never a governmental person, but they made it really easy. So if anybody's ever interested in it, they'll literally give you what to say. And yeah, so anyways. Okay, so I'm gonna make this interactive because again, I'm standing between you and cocktail hour. And so first of all, I call this Community Champions, how ordinary people drive extraordinary research. So, okay. So I actually find fundraising basically always rooted in awareness, especially in the rare disease community or rare disorder community or syndrome community. Whatever you identify with, use that word. Your community, like activating the community in your space, like actually you're going back home. I live in Milwaukee when I used to live in Chicago. Activating your community around what your child is going through or what your family is going to is really gonna change lives. It changes their lives, it changes your lives, and it also can drive some fundraising. So, the foundational priorities, you are here, right? Their priorities are get the community together, find people who have this, find families who have this and connect you guys and hold conferences. You've heard over the last couple days about the research, these cool things that are happening, iPSC models, mouse models, microbiomes, a lot of things that may go over lots of people's heads, as well as just the foundation itself. The lights are on, right? How much money do you think that this conference is costing the foundation? You can just shout out what do you think? How did you know? Ah, yeah. So it is 200,000. How much do you think, like there was actually, I just put the top 3 on there, but I know there's like 5 research programs that are being funded. How much money do you think the foundation spends a year on the research that you've been hearing about? Well, it's cost that much. How much do you think the foundation can put to it? It's about 500,000. The reason that it does cost $1.2 million. I'm gonna give a big plug for the researchers too. Oftentimes when family groups fund research, all of that research is actually also bolstered by their grants and also institutional support that they have. So a lot of times they're not being paid in full for the things that they're doing. They're using borrowing, and stealing from other places to make sure that these programs go forward. So a lot of different advocacy groups, and you're like, oh, you know, it costs $1.5 million, but what can $500,000 get for us today? And then the foundational support. You have Gabrielle, right? Oh my God, it's the end of the day. You have her, right? How much do you think it costs to keep the lights on for a foundation per year around that? Any ideas? All right, it's about $200,000. So the operating budget for this foundation is about $1 million a year. And that doesn't include all the volunteer hours that Jennifer's putting in, all of your parent advisory groups, all of your board members, right? That's a lot of money. However, little bits of fundraising, little bits of awareness can chip away at that, right? I know that the scientists are also trying to fundraise around grants and that sort of thing, but I'm gonna talk a little bit about some fun ways, literally fun, I promise you, these are fun things to do, that I've actually engaged in for fundraising and also increasing awareness in my community. So, OCNDS is part of your everyday life. How do you educate your village about what that means to you? How do you think you do that? We heard a great recommendation this morning. Storytelling, right? What's your story? How does it affect you every day? How does it affect your life, your village? What do you need from your community to make your life, your child's life better, right? All of those stories really connect in different ways, especially when you're going out into your schools, into your businesses and that sort of thing. That really connects them to you, right? And keeps them apprised of what things are going on. So your story is crazy powerful. So I recommend basically what Effie said this morning, craft your elevator pitch or your airplane opener. I say that really lovingly, and you'll see a picture of her later, that I have a wonderful friend, her child has Duke 15Q, he is now 18 years old. You cannot be in a room without Ember without her telling her story. She's gonna, if you're in a room with her, you're gonna know that she has a child with Duke 15Q, you're gonna know about her story, you're gonna know about her life. And she can do it really, really well in like 3 minutes. And it's not even talking as fast as me. So when you have your story, the things that Effie told you this morning, bring those things together. And then you're gonna be able to say, when somebody asks you what OCNDS means to you or what it does for your life, you're gonna be able to do that off the cuff. However, the last couple days have been full of really nerdy stuff, right? The genetics, iPSCs, the mouse models, all the cool research. I can tell you from experience that as soon as you start talking about that, anybody in your village, in your community who is not related to rare disease, it's gone. It's gone. As soon as you mentioned SCNK2A1, they're like, what did you just say? What'd you just call me? So I would generally lean into, like, there's a gentleman who gave a really nice, like, genetics 101 speech, like what genes do. I would highly recommend having your story be, my child has this genetic condition, but this is what happens. This is how we see it, and this is how it affects our life, right? Focus on your experience, your family, and your child in 2 to 3 minutes. Because once you have that elevator pitch down, when you are meeting new people, or maybe you're hosting an event, you're able to give that and connect the people to why they're actually there. And then how does find your community, the foundation, the people that you're asking to fundraise for, how do they help you? How does it make you feel to be in a room with people who understand what you're going through, who understand what your child is going through, who understand all of the questions and uncertainty that's coming up against you, right? And then what does that mean to your family? When I was the executive director of the Duke 15Q Alliance, we held conferences like this every other year. We ended up every year for a while there. And the first thing we said, well, the first thing the parent leader would say is, welcome home. It became our community's home. It became the thing that was their actual family, because oftentimes we'd hear, my family doesn't understand, my parents don't understand, my mom said it's because I gave them too much soda, or whatever it is. They all have that kind of story. But when you sit in a room like this, when a foundation brings your community together, how it makes you feel is really important in that story. So, a show of hands. Who has ever done any fundraising? Small, big? How does it make you feel? Empowered? What? What did you say? Gross. Okay. Anybody else? Empowered? Gross? I hate asking for money. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. So it's one of those things that's fine. It makes you feel gross. One of the things about leveraging, you want to feel empowered. If you're gonna raise money for this foundation, you shouldn't feel gross. You should do it in a way that makes you feel like, I know what I'm raising this money for, and I know what it's going toward, and it's gonna make my village better. So in general, I'm gonna start kind of with some examples of easy fundraisers all the way to some of the harder ones, right? Because at the end of the day, the easy ones make you, you guys have no time, right? The lives you're living are insane, right? So I'm gonna start with the easy things, the things that you may think about or you may never think about, but I'm just gonna start with that and then ramp up. And I'll give you examples of things that I've done or my team has done before too. So first of all, leverage the website. Has everybody been to the foundation's website? That's good. Because the foundation supporting a website and keeping it up to date, I know there's a lot of things that people are asking to be added to the website. That's part of what you're fundraising for. That when families are diagnosed and they Google the alphabet soup that is your diagnosis, they're gonna find this and it's gonna be up to date. So leverage that website. Additionally, on that website, there is a background that there's a donation platform for that, right? So if somebody's asking about what the disorder is, hey, I've got a website for you. And they can go into it and actually they can make the decision to donate, but it's definitely something you can easily leverage. I also recommend, I'll show this later on, adding the website or adding the donation page to your birthday cards or your Christmas cards, because it's an easy way of getting it out there, also sharing your story and sharing the story of Oker Chung and what the community is without you having to say it, right? It's kind of a, like, we went through this, and even if you're like in the Christmas cards when everybody writes all those letters, you know, you can say like, well, this year we had to visit a clinic, or this year we went to this conference and we met, you know, 25 other amazing families, and that meant a ton, like, all these things to us. Check it out here, that sort of thing. The other thing is social media, right? So this is something that we're all on quite often. Show of hands, who has taken a picture here at this conference so far? Now, who has shared one on social media that they're here? 2? Okay. So one of these things, leveraging those sorts of things, why you're here, why it's important to you, adding a donate button is not super hard with that, right? We all see the birthday fundraisers that pop up, but when you're part of something or you're at an event that it's actually making your life better, it's actually not super hard to add the donate button. I actually did this. If you look at the middle one, I don't think is there a pointer? Nope, that's a backwards button. I don't think there's a pointer. But in the middle one, I actually created a post, and then I added the foundation as my beneficiary, right? And so the good thing about that is easy. You don't have to deal with anything. You see the people, you can thank the people that gave the donation, but at the backside, the foundation gets to see it. They get to also thank the people who are donating through there. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy, right? The other thing is that families have done things like awareness days. For Do 15Q, we did Wear a Blue for Do 15Q on our National Awareness Day, where somebody would put out their story, share it publicly, and say, here's a donate button. You know, this is for Wear Blue for Do 15Q. Other awareness days that come up are like Rare Disease Day is the last day of February because it's the most rare day of the year, the February 29th leap year. So that you can always share things like that. You can also make your own awareness day, like Hope for Holden. So Holden is a very, very cute and charming little boy who has Do 15Q, and he also has a nice alliterative name, Hope for Holden. So his parents created his own awareness day. They also created an entire event. They did a Hope for Holden event. And so they kind of created his own little brand, which was kind of nice because then on his birthday, they could do a Hope for Holden fundraiser or donate button, or they could do a Hope for Holden raffle or whatever it was. But anything that kind of comes to you that you would do normally or bringing in the things together, it's something that you could think about in that way and leverage on social media. Also, I mentioned this already, holiday cards. So we all send holiday cards most of the time, and we include those sort of things. Adding information, adding your story, being vulnerable with your village is also really beneficial. One, for raising awareness, because they don't know what you're going through until you tell them. I think that the number one thing, that this has nothing to do with fundraising, a lot of the families, I've met thousands and thousands of families who are affected by rare disorders. Suffering in silence is what you guys do best. And I just don't do that. Share with your family, share with your village what you're going through, because it's going to activate them to help you and really lift you up, okay? So holiday cards are a great example of this. Even some of the, maybe later on down the road, the foundation can do something like this, but it's a great way to get information out there. The other thing is, so this is an awareness event that actually came out of this is something that I did. So I had a wonderful kindergarten teacher for my middle son, who's the kid that's doing this in the yellow. She's like, hey, I told her about Do 15Q. I told her what I did. And she's like, we got to tell people about this. She's like, this is so cool. Let's tell people about this. And I want to do a fundraiser. The kindergartners are going to do a fundraiser. It's like, all right, what is this going to look like? They're going to plan it. They're going to execute it. They're going to take the money, all of this. I said, okay, all right, what you got in mind? She's like, well, we're going to do a book fair. It's like, okay. So for a week before, they did a call. All families from the entire elementary school, donate all your extra books. You're like, we all have so many books left over in the house. Donate them to the kindergartners. They're going to do a book fair and a book sale for Do 15Q. So in that email, I included information about Do 15Q that went to all of the parents in that elementary school and a link to donate. So they got some more information about Do 15Q. The additional piece is this little boy in the Believe shirt on the bottom left, we invited him, he's a sibling of a child with Do 15Q. We invited him to the school to talk to all the classes about what it meant to have a sibling with Do 15Q. It really wasn't about the disorder, because honestly, if you're below 4th grade, genetics are over your head, right? But he was talking about the compassion it takes to have a brother like that, and all the things that he goes through, right? To really identify with the kids. So, but you kind of see this. The kids got really, really into this. The entire school was present that day. They all walked through it's kindergarten through 5th in this. And so they raised $500 in a day. And they raised awareness for over 500 students who now know when somebody says do 15Q, they know that it's a rare genetic disorder, right? So it's some of these things where you can really lean into the schools or the areas that you have and leverage them. Also, Rare Disease Day is a great time to go into the school and explain too, right? You as a parent emailing the principal, I have never, and I've done this at I think 15 schools now, I have never had a principal say no to me coming in and giving information, never. Rare Disease Day is coming up. I want to talk about what this means. I want to talk about inclusion. I want to talk about all of those other things because all of these schools have special education departments. All of these schools have things that they facilitate for their students, their IEPs. So all their students understanding this is really important too. Okay, then look in your own backyard. So from kindergarten to high school, one of our families, and I told you about the elevator pitch. If you know Ember, you know her story. Ember's the one on the far left. So Ember, her daughters, actually all 4 of her kids ended up going to Maine South High School in Park Ridge, Illinois. If anybody's from Illinois, they might know who Maine South is. It's huge, right? Every year, they pick one charity to do a huge school-wide fundraiser, right? And as part of that fundraiser, it's raising awareness, teaching about the nonprofit, and et cetera, et cetera. So one year, Do 15Q Alliance was chosen as that fundraiser. All we had to do was show up and collect the check. And then we sent out a bunch of educational materials because that's what we do as nonprofit people who want to spread awareness. But they raised $54,000 for us. And I didn't know this existed. Ember had to ask about it. And it's one of those things that engaging with your schools, engaging with your community, like, do these things exist? How can we get involved? How can we become the beneficiary and benefactor, right? That's the big thing. Because I got to go, and I mean, this high school's massive. And I got to go and give it like a small thank you and small talk about this. And it was just wonderful to see. And also, on this bottom right one, this is actually Ember's second oldest daughter. She actually graduated from Maine South and now went to Illinois State University, and she is now coming back to Maine South as their special education teacher. So in terms of the siblings, obviously we talked a lot about the siblings and how their lives are just different, right? At the end of the day, some of these, like a lot of these siblings are going to be amazing people and do amazing things because they had this experience too. All right, so other backyard fundraising that we've done is whiskey nights. Everybody loves a good whiskey tasting. Everybody loves a good wine tasting. And at the end of the day, like we did a whiskey tasting at our house. I just asked my husband's friends who bought their most expensive bottles. I was like, hey, bring something expensive. And then, so they're donating their whiskey, and then we just charged everybody $50 to do it. It's one of those things, it's something we do anyways. Like, if you come over to our house and you don't end up in our basement tasting whiskey, I mean, Greg has to be sick. He has to be sick in bed and not there. So it's one of those things, I leaned into things that we were already doing and bringing people together and making it an awareness and a fundraising event. The other thing is we had a new brewery that was coming into town, and they actually wanted to get butts in the seats because nobody was coming in. But they were putting up they were doing new brews, so they wanted to do more of these things to get other people, like people into there. So we did a charity night there. Charity poker. So this is a cool one. Maybe next year you guys can do this. So charity poker started very randomly with our scientists. So like I said, we have every other year science and then family research, conferences. Our scientists started playing poker every year at our conference. It was usually pretty late at night. But I was like, hey, guys, and I would play poker too. And I was like, hey, what do you think if I organized this last year? Would you fundraise for us? Would you ante up? Like give me $100 to do a buy-in? And they did. And so the first year we raised a couple thousand. The next year we raised like 5,000. The next year we raised like 10,000. And the next year, I think the last one I did was 15,000. And it was the easiest thing because they were doing it anyways. We just kept the bar open. And the thing, it wasn't about the first buy-in. It was about the second and third and fourth rebuy that we made all of our money because nobody wanted to leave that room. So it's one of these things, like something that happens organically, something that happens in the space, just rolling with it, finding something that's there. And like the scientists really love it, and we ended up doing this little tiny trophy it was so funny. We're like, we're gonna do a trophy and it's like this big and it just keeps traveling. The other thing is that local markets. There's a lot of things in your village that just getting the awareness out there, putting up a table, this is what it is, this is a child in your area. We did this. Highwood is another place in Illinois that they have a local market every Wednesday night, and a lot of people come. So we would always set things up. It's not what you know, it's who you know. The amount of times that I had somebody come up to that table and be like, well, it's not Duke 15Q, but I have a cousin, or I have a sister, or I have a whatever that has another genetic disorder. And the ability to make those connections and that awareness and connect there was just staggering. I also got a very large donation once from a gentleman that we just spent a lot of time. He was just really curious. And he's like, I'm gonna send you $25,000. You never know. And it was I wasn't even pushing for fundraising. I was just like, this is what we're doing, this is what we're dedicated to. And I tend to cry also when I talk about it, so that's just me. So backyard fundraising, it's the things you're doing anyways that are fun, that you can lean into, okay? Also, chambers of commerce are great people to know, because they know the businesses who are already doing these things, who already support nonprofits. So get involved in your chamber of commerce, let them know you're in the community, because they're gonna be able to connect you to those businesses who want those sort of things. We did a comedy night with somebody, it's actually a semi-famous comedian now, but back in the day she wasn't, but now she is. But we did a comedy night where she came in and did a comedy set at a local business, and it was awesome. But again, I wouldn't have known it if I didn't know the Chamber of Commerce in that one. All right. Other inspiring fundraisers that are sort of random, but super cool. Labor Day tractor cruise. I'm from a very small town in Wisconsin. On the last day of school, all of the high schoolers drive our tractors to school. You can leverage stuff like that, right? Tractor parades, tractor total things. So these things, meet your community where they are. Because I know for sure that if I would have been like, hey, it's $100 to drive a tractor, they'd be like, yeah, here you go. Yeah, I want to drive my tractor. Trivia nights. I love going to trivia. These are things that you can partner with the company that does the trivia to all benefits go to them, and things that, could put a thing out there. Golf tournaments are awesome. They're a little bit more of a heavy lift. Not for nothing. I'll talk a little bit more about one in a second. But golf tournaments are really great because it's people that, it doesn't necessarily raise awareness, but it's something that brings people together. You're forcing a foursome, right? So my husband has to find 3 guys to go and play, come play golf. And so you kind of expand your circle. The other piece is for all of these fundraisers, getting the names and email addresses of everybody who donates actually makes it easier on the foundation to re-engage them, right? So if you make that connection the first time, then the foundation has their information, so that if they're sending out an end-of-year giving thing or something like that, it kind of takes over from there, so then you don't have to feel like you're continually engaging. This one, Quinn's Hot Cocoa for a Cure, this is actually an Angelman one. Quinn is actually a sibling again, and he just started to do this and really just made it his own. He raised $26,000. It was he got businesses to give him a bunch of money. There was actually sponsors of this, but it was just hot cocoa. It was insane, but he did it himself, and he was really great at kind of, that he had that kind of personality. Golf outings. So, golf outings, again, these are, if you have somebody who in your space golfs, a lot of these spaces will give you the tee times and give you the space for free. So you'll go in and you're like, I'm a nonprofit, how much would it cost? And they'll say this, and they're like, well, can you give it to us for a nonprofit rate or for free? Oftentimes they will. It'll be a little bit of a weird time, but they often will. The other thing is activate your social circle. If you're gonna do something big like this, friends and family are going to be your committees. Jennifer has been amazing at this. I met most of her board and a lot of the advisors, that these are people that were in her social circle before, that she has leveraged for their insight, for their time and their talent and their treasure, right? You all have those sorts of things that can help you, because again, you don't have to do this alone. I love golf outings too, because you can have a lot of business support too. And then you can include silent auctions and raffles as well, so that kind of adds up. All right, then the bigger lifts. The one on the top is a gala. We didn't do a gala. Duke 15Q Alliance was around for 21 years before we ever did a gala. And I, as an executive director, always said no. I would never do a gala, and so it wasn't until I left that they were able to do this, because it is a big lift. It was a completely separate committee, but they knocked it out of the park. That set of families who was dedicated to nope, we want to do this. I was like, okay, this is going to be on you. They did a great job. They partnered with a new hotel that gave them a bunch of things for free. So bigger lifts, but again, activating a committee around that, so it's not just on one person. The bottom left, my right, your left, is actually media, news media. Getting the actual word out there, sharing your story, being very open, very transparent, very vulnerable to share your story with local news media. This actually works. You'll see it once in a while on, if you have your news on, they'll tell you a story about some kid, with rare something. This is a way to keep it going, keep it out there. The bottom right is a friend of mine, Eileen Miller, who's actually the administrative head of the Rare Epilepsy Network. Her son has hyperthalamic hematoma, so he's got a brain thing. And so she just kept going. She's like, I kept getting turned down, but finally they did a whole story on him and their organization. Then on the bottom, so you may have heard I'm involved in Rett syndrome. The director of the Ontario Rett Syndrome Association, her husband races motorcycles. He has an entire club, massive club of motorcycle racers. And last year they created Revs for Rett. And so they do like a fundraiser every year, and it brings it all together, and they make a ton of money. But it's, again, leaning into something in their community that they already have there, right? So it's the lift was not hard. Their community and their village was already there. They just needed to bring that awareness component into it for fundraising. And then I laugh because Jen knows what this is. The one with all the computers. So Duke 15Q did, essentially it was like an online conference. But it was called the Big Give. Well, actually, they do it every year, Big Give. We go live for 24 hours. And the goal was to make, I think we made $100,000 the first year, $150,000 the next year. But every hour we had a goal to get to, and then we had a match to. But it's a lot, and it's a lot of things on the foundation. But it's another way to raise awareness. Also, it gives you a lot of things to share with for education to other people too. So it's just an idea, and then all the other typical things, walks. You can bring families together in sporters nationwide. If there's multiple families in different cities, they can do it the same day and come. They can advertise at the same time because the foundation can help you do that. End of year campaigns, again, this kind of leans into the holidays, focusing on the impact of individual donations. This is something that if you get somebody that you know who might have lots of money, asking them to say, will you be a matching gift? You know, you don't want them to make a regular donation. We have something coming up. Would you match each donation? Because you would be surprised how a matching donation will increase the revenue for any fundraiser. It's one of those things, like I've definitely gotten the call, well, how far are you away from getting the matching? How far are you away from getting the matching? So finding people like that in your area who are like able to give those big things and be the match is awesome. Holiday card campaigns, events, galas, golf outings, crowdfunding. Giving Tuesday is an interesting one. Has everybody heard about Giving Tuesday? So it kind of fell on the back of Black Friday, of Cyber Monday, all of this. It went to Giving Tuesday, so that after you spend all this money on all the things, for Christmas or after Thanksgiving, Christmas, it's leading into charity. So Giving Tuesday is a nice one too for events to get around. Marathons and fun runs. I am always surprised at the crazy people who run marathons. Anybody run marathons in this room? You're nuts. But it's a really great way to, again, do things you're already doing and engage with a fundraiser. The bigger ones that if there's ever if you have 5 people that you identify within the foundation that will do it, you have to do big partnerships. So like to run New York City for a charity or run Boston for a charity, you do have to get a team together. But for you can do just once off, so you can do your personal fundraisers, but like fun runs and that sort of thing to lean into them for the crazy people who do that. There's Mike Poreth is now do ultra marathons to fundraise because he runs like 110. I was like, you are nuts. But these are things like lean into what you're doing, lean into the areas you gather people together to do awareness and spread it to fundraising. All right, you don't have to do this alone. Friends can become your planning committee members. Oftentimes when you put a committee together and you've done something, it's successful, they're the ones that are gonna push you to do it again. And if you don't wanna engage, be like, yeah, sure, go ahead, do it. Like, I'll just be here, I'll bring my kid, I'll tell my story, but go ahead and do it. Because they're the ones they feel good after that. They feel empowered, they're feeling like they're supporting you. But they're the ones like activating that committee and getting them excited is amazing. The foundation can provide some support. You have 1 paid staff member, maybe 2? You have a part-time person? 1.5. So the foundation can only provide some support right now, right, until you grow a little bit more. They can help you on brainstorming. What can you present, what sort of things are going to be good in your space, in your area, swag and informational materials. So when you're there, you're able to, have the stickers, you're able to have the pens, and then flyers and informational materials on social media. This is really, and then I already mentioned this, expanding the foundation's reach and contact list is really one of the better things that a lot of foundations are told to do to really increase their reach. The good part about this foundation, I know that they're going to do it, it's both for fundraising as well as for education. So they want other people outside of even just the families that are affected to know what they're doing and know what they're doing for the people who are affected by this. And then, again, leveraging your story, right? You guys all, the ones that even came up here, like the 4 that were volunteering this morning, amazing, right? Leverage that story, get it out there, get it into your community, that you're going to touch hearts and minds and sometimes pocketbooks, but touching the hearts and the minds is the first pass. So, okay, I think the big thing is that I know, like, it shouldn't feel gross. So if it feels gross, don't do it. That's, but do something that's fun for you. Do something that's exciting, and start by sharing a story. You're going to be really, really surprised how being vulnerable and transparent about what you're going through will connect you to people and will ultimately connect you to awareness and other, like, even the larger space. Thanks, guys.